And we are live for another episode of First Strike. But before we start the show, going to plug our sponsor, FaceToFaceGames.com, the #1 place to get your Magic the Gathering singles. Right now, their weekly sale is up to 50% off select standard singles. So make sure you click the banner on the front page. They'll lead you to a page full of all the stuff that's on sale in standard. And things are flying fast. So once again, check that out. And always like the Facebook page for Face-to-Face Games to keep updated on the weekly sale and to be eligible to win their weekly $50 gift certificates, where still only 100 people sort of enter. So much like there's a significant chance that you can win. And as I've said last episode, there's people that probably are at a point where they're going to win twice. Is there any lag with me in the chat? Let me know, and Kyle can edit this part out. Excited for this episode because we're going to break down the PT and we're going to talk some Modern with Final Nub as he's going down to play some Modern in Vegas. And excited to have all three, because all three of them are the contributors for the Sideboard Guys, which you can get within the First Strike Nation at patreon.com/firststrike. Hearing a bit of feedback, and I don't know if it's coming from John or not. John.
I hope not.
Can you mute yourself? Maybe it's your laptop spinning.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, yeah, it clearly is that. So we got that fixed. I just wanted this opportunity to plug a new show that I'm doing. It's called, for a lack of a original name, I said, like, screw it. We're not going to come up with a funky name. There's people with their name, like Cedric and everyone that puts their own name because it covers all the topics that they care about. So I just called it the KYT Show, which was a more interview-style show, something that I...
Is there lag for real this time? It's not just me this time? There's real lag
for me.
Cargon is gone.
This was happening for like seconds. Like when I asked if there was lag the first time. So how's everybody's?
That's what you get with live TV.
How's your Tuesday? Are we enjoying our week so far?
Really, Tuesday is just second Monday. That's what I overheard in the halls today. Someone was really ragging on Tuesday.
Really ragging on Tuesday, eh? I think I like this. This week's been good for me so far. I'm enjoying the Magic content.
Well, welcome back, Car.
Okay, the computer went to sleep.
Sometimes you just need a nap.
Sometimes the laptop just needs a nap. But as I wanted to say, I've been wanting to do a new show because there's a lot of guests I want to talk to bring on and to share the content with that doesn't really fit First Strike. For example, to interview what my A-Team co-hosts have been up to since they've quit the show or since the show ended, and doesn't fit this. And of course, to bring Medina on for more MTG finance, I don't think really appeals to everyone within the First Strike listenership. So there's different type of guests I want to talk about non-Magic stuff, and that will be coming out this week. My first guest is the winner of the Calgary Open Plus with Merfolk, Mike Irving, who ended up being an awesome guest, and I'm going to interview Jesse Smith, one of my first co-hosts of the A-Team. So look forward to that. I'll be tweeting about it on my Twitter feed and Facebook. Wherever you follow me, you'll hear about it. And it's exciting because not only do I do non-Magic, but it's also a focus on talking about up-and-coming names in the Canadian Magic, which is something I did for ManagePrive.com. That was the goal of the website 8 years ago, which was to hype up people like Hayne, John Stern, etc., that have since become established stars. And I look forward to doing that with that show. Like Jerry mentioned in his list of improvements WotC could do is star build, and that's something that I love to do too. You want to cheer for someone one more when you get to learn a bit more about their personality. For example, I'm always going to be cheering for Final Nub, no matter what he does. And I'm adding a bit of a perk for the First Strike patrons, which is if you just pledge $1, the lowest amount, you're going to get the unedited raw call that I do with a lot of these guests. And what else? And that's about it. And I've opened up the Discord to every patron of First Strike, and we're gonna get more activity in there. So enough with all the plugs. Let's get straight to the Pro Tour. And last week we had mentioned, I think all the guys, including Derek and Ellie, had mentioned how it's the PT might have the greatest influence on what people will end up playing, but it's a poor representation, perhaps because poor data set, because there's limited as part of the reason, part of the equation as to how people got to the top 8. They had to have done reasonably well in the limited portion. So it doesn't represent the best decks necessarily, and people will tend to play them. But overall, on average, I do think the decks are likely strong and stronger than normal because they were tested by Pro Tour names. So whereas the results might be skewed, but I think like most of the lists are at least backed by some amount of testing and not like random MTGO lists that you see that people are really experimenting with wild things. Let's start with you, Derek. Surprised with the PT top 8? I mean, I think all three of you predicted that Boros might be a big part of the top 8 and ended up being a majority of the top 8.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I've had a lot of people ask me how I feel about it, and I think it was pretty expected. I don't even like. A lot of people were like, "Oh, White wasn't even the most played deck. Green Black was, and there's not in top 8." I'm like, yeah, I mean, there was a blue-red Phoenix player who went 10-0 in Constructed and didn't make top 8. There was a mono-blue player who went 10-0 in Constructed and didn't make top 8. There's a couple other green-black players and red players and Phoenix players at X2 in Constructed, and they didn't make top 8. So, like, the draft record has a lot to affect that. And then, like, it's not like green-black didn't show up to the event. It's not like these other decks didn't show up. They just weren't in top 8. But yeah, I don't know. To me, like, the Pro Tour is never a good metric for constructed decks. It's more of just like parsing through the different archetypes to find out what deck you like. I wouldn't take too much weight in the data that was released this weekend, I guess.
Are you surprised by any specific cards that some of the stock lists were playing, and what has that led you to test right now?
I was surprised that like LSV tuned their deck so much for the mirror. I think that's sort of like I want to say like catch-22 in the sense that if you do it, you look really smart if it works out, and if you also do it, you look really stupid if it doesn't work out. And to me, like, it just shows that they had a good sense on the metagame, but they also probably got pretty lucky in the draft portion, because I think their overall team record was 44% in constructed. So actually, like, I'll take that back. Maybe it didn't work out for them, you know? Maybe they beat all the mirrors and lost against everything else, which to me is like a 6-4 record in constructed. And then like you just 5-1 draft or 6-0 draft like LSV did or whatever, and you end up in top 8. So to me, like, that sort of explains that deck list. Like, that was the weirdest thing to me. I was actually surprised that you made top 8. That was kind of insane to me. I was not expecting there to be a Drake list with that amount of white decks in top 8 also. I wasn't surprised he was knocked out round 1. And then I was surprised that a mono blue tempo deck went 10-0. That's sort of the only thing, like, in the real stock list. Like, I think that one outlier in the mono blue tempo deck really stood out to me, like that entire deck list. There wasn't really anything else I saw that really surprised me. I feel like everything else was sort of in a certain range for these standard players, or these what these players would actually play in constructed. Like to me it's not surprising. Yeah.
Okay. I think, like, LSV, to what you said, I just found the exact tweet. He tweeted, as Team CFB, we won 81% of our limited and 44% of our constructed match. Lol, is what he said. And Andy had mentioned, like, he would recommend last week. He would recommend local people playing in local events that are comprised with a lot of people that won't pay attention to MTGO to play this deck, and maybe at the PT that some people you should assume that people at the PP know about this deck, and you could go to the next level. Andy, so were you surprised at the LSV? What the next level?
I was surprised in a Johnny's Pride Mate, and I was actually very surprised on how good it looked in the mirror. Oh my goodness, it was like a complete mirror breaker. It was like one of the best cards possible in the mirror, and their list, like gaining a lot of life in the early game, was just so good against the lists with the token maker, that they like were able to like take on that big hit, or like make it to the point where when they play that card, it's not game ending, so it's not actually good, weakening one of the better cards in the other decks. And I don't know, I'm not surprised to see them play White Weenie. I think it's a very strong deck. It's one of the best decks, certainly tier 1, and Drake's was everywhere the week before, and it has a very good Drake's matchup. So what they did is they played the deck that has a good Drake's matchup and then geared it for the mirror. That's like a big chunk of the metagame you can expect to face. So I think it was a good choice. Like, it's like once red gets reintroduced though with Chain Whirler though, then things get interesting, and that's why the standard format is so good though, because things can get introduced and shake up the metagame completely based on what happened that weekend.
So yeah, Andy, what do you think is that where you think the format is going? What's your opinion of the next step? And were you like Derek, when we were chatting, there's a lot of talk that, hey, this Jeskai deck was well positioned to take down the whole tournament. Did you feel the same way?
I thought Jeskai was in good shape. I kind of liked the Jeskai matchup, and he was playing a lot of he was playing Crackling Drake, which is actually one of the better cards against the White Weenie deck out of Jeskai. So I think he had a good shot. He had a lot of good cards. Deafening Clarion plus Crackling Drake is game over a lot of the time. I think he sort of misevaluated what Experimental Frenzy does in a very key game and lost because of it.
Yeah, he made I think that was a big mistake that game, and I think he made a mistake earlier in another match, and I think he made a mistake at another point in that game. When I saw the plays he was making, I'm like, this is going to lose you the game. And he just sort of threw it away. Like, Andrew was on the Moldify on game 5 and just didn't answer the Frenzy, and Frenzy drew him 3 cards, then put him in such a position that he couldn't leverage his card advantage and lost the match. And I think that, like, that's the problem with these Jeskai decks, is like once they're sort of behind, they sort of stay behind. And I think that Jeskai deck should have won that top 8. I think he sort of threw that game away.
So Derek, do you think it's a good choice moving forward now that like these white-red decks have seemingly dominated in the news, and maybe in the queues, if people are gravitating towards that deck, is Jeskai the way to go? Do you see that?
No, because like Andy said, the natural next deck is mono red or like some red aggro variants, and I think that Jeskai has such a god awful matchup against the red decks that if people are choosing Jeskai or mono red, the people who are falling on mono red are just going to beat the people who are falling on Jeskai, and the people who are playing mono red are going to get cheesed out by mono red enough that they're just going to put a bunch of life gain cards in their deck. But like that doesn't make them any weaker to Jeskai, so to speak, right? So I just think like playing Jeskai when other people are also playing mono red is like sort of like not the way to go.
You know, I have heard of some pros like RLX, for example, and other people cite that Jeskai has a pretty good matchup against mono red, which having played mono red a bunch, it doesn't make sense to me, but you know, take that for what it's worth.
I mean, I think that I've seen that people also say Jeskai is a good matchup against green black, but I also have like a winning matchup against green black. It also has a lot to do with how many Carnage Tyrants I put into play against these Jeskai decks. But I think a lot of people say these things and they're based on their evaluation and not how a matchup should play out or looks like it'll play out. Like obviously there's like a little bit of like dissonance between those two things, but I think in general, like this Jeskai deck is very slow. Its main win condition is a Fireball on like turn 20 or Teferi, and it's playing cards like Revitalize. So to me, when you play a card like Revitalize, it means that you need a life gain effect because otherwise that card's really bad. So if you're not drawing your Revitalize or your opponent has the extra burn spell, you're probably dying, right? So to me, like, I don't know how this Jeskai deck could be good against the mono red deck. And if it is, it can't be consistent enough. And also, like, they have a real tough time dealing with Frenzy. To me, like, mono red's game plan is just to resolve a Frenzy anyways and kill you. So I don't know how Jeskai is supposed to beat that.
Yeah, now that the mono red lists are like finally growing up and just 4 experimental frenzies in the main deck, it's finally like at the point where it can be a good deck. And like all the times before that, I don't think it had the power level to be a good deck. But experimental frenzy might be the 2nd or 3rd best card in standard, right? Like it's like Teferi, Frenzy, and then there's like a lot of other cards that are like similar power level in the upper echelon of power levels. And I think now that mono red's built around Frenzy, I think it's very good. I think counterspells are bad in Jeskai also. I think you should only play like 2 strokes or something and not play anything else. I think you can't play counterspells right now. They're so loose against a lot of decks. Like I 5-0'd with right before the Pro Tour with a list that was playing 4 Crackling Drakes and 3 Niv Mizzets with like a bunch of dive downs. And someone 12-4'd the Pro Tour with a deck very similar, but they decided to play counterspells. And I think going forward, that's the kind of Jeskai I would want to build because it, first of all, it has an easier way to win the game. And second of all, it's not relying on these 3-mana counterspells that actually just get super awkward against half the field.
I do love the Drakes as a proactive answer to Carnage Tyrant, for example, one of the biggest card against Jeskai. And it's also a proactive way to just turn the corner very fast. I do like that it's gone away from the Azor's Gateway build, which I think gave it a huge edge in the mirrors. But as you saw from the metagame was very wide open, and in that regard, like you really didn't have time to sink your mana into Azor's Gateway, set it up, because you're just going to get run over by Adanto Vanguards and Fanatical Firebrands.
My biggest issue with the versions that have Drake in them is it's like near impossible to cast your spells. You have this like real issue with casting your spells in a good curve without like having some amount of fail rate. Played against somebody online the other day and they had Cleansing Nova, and they typed in chat, "I don't know how I'm supposed to cast Cleansing Nova in this deck. I don't know where my second white source is, and it's turn 9." I'm like, you probably just can't, right? Like, I don't know how those Jeskai decks consistently cast their spells on curve. One of the reasons why I've shied away from it, but I don't know. People are winning with it sometimes, so maybe there's something going on there.
Yeah, the Drakes list that I played no Wraths at all except for the red one in the sideboard, Star of Extinction. It just played no Novas, no Settles. Like this list might have played those, but the current list I play doesn't play them because you're right. The mana issues are real. That's why I don't like counterspells either, especially Sinister Sabotage. That one gets me every time. How people think they can have double blue on turn 3 and cast other spells.
When people cast it against me, I'm like, how do you cast your spells? How do you ever cast your spells on curve? This doesn't make sense.
So what have you been playing, Derek? Are you still tooting that green-black horn? And how do you feel about it in its positioning right now?
Yeah, I'm still playing green-black. I still stick with the statement I made a couple weeks ago that like green-black is the most consistent deck across the board. You just have to pick what you're trying to beat this weekend. I think like there's a couple of adaptations we saw this weekend. One specifically that stood out to me was Autumn Burchett's list, and they worked together with Jadine Clomparents to come together and make this sort of odd green-black list compared to what we've normally seen in this format. But it made a lot of sense considering that I think everybody was on a similar wavelength to what they were expecting in the metagame. They main decked Brontodon, they didn't have Elves, and they played Adventurer's Impulse. And so they also cut a land. So to me, that means like those were the 3 things that stood out. There's a couple other changes, but nothing really stood out to me. to me, that signifies that they didn't like Elf for grind reasons. They wanted Brontodon in probably the fast aggressive matchups and against Frenzy, and they wanted Adventurer's Impulse so they could cut a land and hit their important creatures in specific matchups like Brontodon, like Wild Growth Walker, like Carnage Tyrant. To me, going forward, that is a huge sort of like change in thought process that we've seen from the regular green black. I don't necessarily know if it's correct going forward given the circumstance of the metagame, but it's sort of like a different outlook at how to build the green black archetype. And I think that that's something that we should take notice in and sort of think about going forward, because it's possible that just playing the Carnage Tyrant Vraska Vivien plan isn't good enough, and you want more consistency in these creatures that you need to beat specific decks. Like if Mono Red pops up, I want more Wild Growth Walkers. Can't play more than 4. Maybe I'll put Impulse in my deck, sort of thing, right? So it's something to play with. I'm probably going to be playing green black at Milwaukee this weekend. If you see me there, say hi or whatever. Yeah, I'm excited. I think there's a lot of white decks. Green black's very well positioned. I feel very, very well positioned against the white decks. I think in general that they're pretty bad unless they're playing against the Phoenix deck. And yeah, nice face, Andy. And I think like I'm okay against the Phoenix deck now. So I feel like I'm in a good position.
Okay, so hopefully we're going to see you at least day 2 GP Milwaukee this weekend. Andy, what do you think? Do you think green black's well positioned? What other decks or would you play? I'm imagining you're not making the trek down to Milwaukee. So what would you play? Or you are?
I'm not going to Milwaukee. I did consider it, but I think green black's fine. It's always like a 45-55 deck. Sometimes it can get a little worse. Sometimes it gets a little better. So I think green black's a totally fine choice, especially if you know what the metagame's going to be. And I think I like Autumn's and Jadine's list a lot. And typically a card I don't like is Vraska, but they just had very good reasons to why they play Vraska. It's like sort of like this mirror breaker thing where like they just try to ult it in the mirror, and now you have to keep trying to attack it or else you'll die. And once they start explaining that it does that, and also just whatever, it's like a bad abrupt decay sort of in other matchups, that's like its floor. I was kind of sold on like having one copy as being totally fine. So I like their list quite a bit. I really always liked Wild Growth Walker. I felt like it was one of the best cards in the deck and one of your best ways to beat a couple different decks. So I like playing 4 there. I like Adventurous Impulse as a way to kind of cheat on lands. So I like their list quite a bit, and I think it's a good choice. If I was going, I would probably play just Izzet Drakes, or I would play Jeskai Control with almost no counter spells.
Final note: have you put into thought? I know your brain is on Modern, but would you have an opinion on what you would play if you were playing Standard in Milwaukee or you were to the Standard seat in Las Vegas?
Oh yeah, I've actually been brainstorming a lot with my friend and teammate here going for Vegas. I actually played in the mocks last week, and I actually said it out loud that I think Mono Red's poised to come back again. And remember last season we were just all crying for the ban of Chain Whirler, and people literally said these 1/1s and the tokens decks cannot exist solely because of one card. And we see online these white weenies and red-white weenies come up, and the question I don't think many people were asking was like, what can oppress these strategies? And it's fast aggressive deck like red, mono red that can have Chain Whirlers and cast it on turn 3. And it seems like some other pros like Eric Froelich and Jerry Thompson were on the same page there. And it seems like based on their tweets, they did very well. Actually did play mono red in the mocks on Saturday, and the biggest thing I paid attention to was that I didn't want to auto lose to a Wild Growth Walker or a Drake. So in that regard, that meant cutting all the risk factors, because I think that the time for that card has come and gone. We just need to play to the board a bit more. So for Lava Coils, like Jerry Thompson suggested, in the main deck, play a bit of Phoenixes, go slightly bigger, maybe cut a few Firebrands, and then just have the Bang Fire Frenzy plan in the sideboard, as well as evolving into a more mid-range deck against green black with 3 Direfleet Daredevils, which I think is very good in multiple matchups. And in that regard, I think that you're well set up against the white weenie decks. You're going to skewer the Izzet Drake decks with 4 coils, 3 Direfleets, etc., and have a good chance against control. And hopefully you get to leave up your Lightning Strike on the turn 4 with their Wild Growth Seeker Squire turns, or just kill Wild Growth on sight, or hope they don't draw it. And that would give you a pretty decent chance against green black. So I think red is something that I've liked over the past week, and I think that red is going to be a good choice, given that after the Pro Tour, people are going to start nut decking the white weenie decks, and Train World is the perfect fun police to squash that.
Final nub. What the breakdown. Loving it. So that's our standard breakdown. I think we got the opinion of all 3 guys about what they would play. And I think they all have pretty convincing arguments. Let's jump to the only format we have that I wish I could kick Derek off of, but temporarily, Modern, as Final Nub is going to be the Modern seed for his Vegas team. At least that's what I thought. I hear, and he was sending screenshots to me and Andy while he was playing online of Griselbrand. I'm like, oh my god, the master, he's bringing it back. Then recently got a message from him, probably just going to play Dredge. What happened? Why did you bring Griselbrand back? For the funsies?
Well, look, I always want the deck to be good. I want to turn 2 people as much as anyone else. It feels good, but really might not be the most responsible thing to do right now. Graveyard hate is everywhere. Humans of all decks are playing like 2 Grafdiggers, 2 Tormods, and it's just like super hateful, and there is the Bant Spirits deck and the Humans deck at the top, which are horrible matchups with the deck. And I just feel like the time is right for a Graveyard deck, as the last SCG and the Grand Prix Atlantis results didn't have a lot of Graveyard decks, but I feel like Dredge is perfect again because no one's really heard from it for the last week or so, for last month or so. And I actually explored a lot of the top tier 1 decks and in Modern just to see what I should play, and they all sound medium. They all felt medium. Modern is a game of rock paper scissors, and my philosophy is if you can't find a machine gun for this game of rock paper scissors, read Dredge with Golgari Grave Troll or Eldrazi Winter Eldrazi. Just play with the most highly powered deck and just go with it. Something that you know how to play, something that it's high power level. Don't think too much about it. And if you wanna interact in Modern, don't bother. Sorry,
Derek. I have a quick question. Did you say that people have forgotten about Dredge?
Relatively speaking, I think Modern is very cyclical, and the last 3 or 4 weeks in paper result, which includes the Star City game result and the Grand Prix Atlanta result, wasn't that overrun with Dredge. So I think it's hard to time the Modern paper metagame cycle, I know, and in the PTQ, Dredge won 12-0, I realize that. But I just have a feeling that Graveyard decks are fine to play right now. It might not be exceptional, and Dredge with Creeping Chill is very high power level. I think combining those factors, I think Dredge is the way to go.
Yeah, I was going to mention that Dredge won the PTQ on the weekend, and I think that any reasonable or seasoned Modern player would understand that Dredge won the PTQ on this weekend. And so I think if we're talking about these Modern players that understand the format, understand that it's cyclical, and understand that they would understand that Dredge won the PTQ on the weekend. So to me, if I think I'm a seasoned player and I think other people are seasoned players, and we're talking about how Dredge is sort of not really in the meta right now, and then it wins the PTQ, I feel like I missed it. I missed the time to play Dredge because everybody's going to know about it now, right? If I was going to a Modern event this weekend, I would put Graveyard Hate in my sideboard, no doubt about it. So I think that that's something to think about. Obviously, I don't play that much Modern. I don't really like to, but I was thinking about playing which we might bring up later, the new Moto challenges that you can now qualify on Moto through different formats and stuff. So it's forcing me to play different formats. I think that's definitely one of the things that, like, you're right about Modern being cyclical. I think that Dredges would be a bad format.
I think I think you're right, Derek, and I also think that a hidden takeaway from the PTQ is Hardened scaled it very well as well. So that's an artifact deck right there, but also gets hit by Rip and Leyline. It definitely takes a lot of skill to time a metagame and whatnot, but people can't switch between modern decks in paper easily. So what they can do is switch sideboard card slots. And Dredge, Dredge's sideboard is entirely or almost entirely about combating hate. And one of the most important skills you can have as a Dredge player is know exactly what kind of hate that you would expect from XYZ decks. And it can easily fight through one or two pieces of hate, especially because people are mulliganing into just like single hate card type of hand, thinking that this will knock out Dredge, which is far from the truth. So I do understand your point. I do agree with it. I think that given the timing as well as the power level of the Creeping Chill Dredge, I think it's a good choice.
Yeah, I like Dredge. I think Dredge is good enough that you can still play it when it has a target on its head. Like, it's not going to be as like insane, but like Dredge on the way to that PTQ win in the top 4, I think, or maybe it was the first round of top 8. It beat Blue White Control with 3 main deck Rest in Peace in it. So I don't know. I think Dredge is a good choice. I played it recently, just testing it out, kind of seeing what I might play at the Modern RPTQ, and I was really impressed with Dredge's ability to fight through hate. And like in game 2, when you get stuck in a position where they have a hate card and if you're missing your answer, it is pretty convenient that you just have like 8 cards in your deck that draw cards to get you to your anti-hate. And sometimes you could just play some Bloodghasts. That's kind of how I cheesed out a victory against a Grishol brand, actually, through a Leyline. We Leylined each other, and then I just attacked with 2/1s.
A lot of decks actually have a hard time beating Stinkweed Imp. Like Death Shadow, for example, even Jund. Like, how does Tarmogoyf, they're going to remove all their like fatal pushes or whatever. How do they get through a Stinkweed Imp, right? And a funny story is I actually played the eventual winner who went 12-0. And game 3, this was like in the 3-0 bracket. He multi-5, and his hand was the Leyline of Void, land, Faithful Saluting, and Dredger, and he turn 1 Faithful Saluting, turn 0 Faithful Saluting, turn 0 Leyline, turn 1 looting away 2 Dredgers, and just went Preserve on turn 3. So he had the eventual winner had some very fortunate draws, but I'm sure he played very well as well. So congrats to him.
Yeah, I think Faithless Looting is Ancestral Recall. That card's broken. Every time I see somebody cast it on camera at a Modern GP, they just win the game a couple turns later. Card's broken.
Final Dub, you had a good start though. Like, what happened? When did the wheels come out? Like, you started 5-1 or something?
Yeah, I started 5-1. My one loss was to the eventual winner on a extremely like nutty multi-5. I lost to Tommy Ashton in a very weird game where he was playing Martyr, and he was at 30 life and had a Damping Sphere, and which made it very hard for me to combo. And I got him to 1 life, so I had 29 damage, but not 30. And from that, he ranges the EOS into like 3 Martyr of Sand, and I was literally locked out. I didn't have a way to work. I lost I lost like 2 70% like coin flips, and I finished like 5-4. You know, it happens.
How many people were in your PTQ?
So the Moto PTQ was like 340-ish.
Okay, yeah, I played the one on Saturday for Standard, and it was 333.
Right. Sorry, when I went to PTQ, yeah, I played Mono Red in the PTQ as well.
Sorry. I thought we were talking about that.
No,
I played the Monks.
PTQ, right? I think you went 6-2, Derek, if I saw correctly.
Yeah, I came 22nd. You played the PTQ though?
Yeah, I played Mono Red, and I just ran into the Burroughs Angel player who still think that the deck is like remotely viable.
Oh,
was there a Modern PTQ on Sunday?
Yeah, there was actually. It was back-to-back PTQs.
Right. Did you play that one also?
I played both. Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about? I'm lost.
Okay, Derek, you're not paying attention. Kyle, cut this part out.
Yeah.
Because Derek is embarrassing himself here.
Saturday was the standard PTQ, and Sunday was the modern PTQ, both on Magic Online.
Right, and the modern one had 340.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I really think they need to add in the constructed prelims. They had like, they have limited prelims and they used to have constructed ones, but then this was around when Blue White Copter was around, and they cut them, and now we're getting like 300 plus person PTQs, like 9-rounders. It's way too long.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I really think they need to cut it. I didn't know if it was just standard getting like over 300 people, but if modern's also getting over 300 people, this is really bad.
I mean, part of the way they're trying to alleviate this issue is to create this new system, right? Where we feed into like these format challenges and the format playoffs and whatnot. I'm sure we'll get to that later at KYT.
Yeah, we're about to jump into that. But I think just wanted to finalize the modern stuff. So you're going down this weekend, modern seed. You're saying standard is probably some mono red. Any legacy spice that your team is conjuring up?
I mean, our legacy player is Cyrus Corman Guild, who plays second place in the Eternal Weekend. So I'll leave it to him, Cyrus, to decide what.
Quite a good team then.
Sorry?
You got quite a good team then.
Yeah, we feel very good about our team. Yeah.
Okay, I'm excited to see how you guys compete. Of course, one of the most sought after guides that we did. Like, people just love modern naturally, and they love Final Nub, of course, and the Dredge guide that we have within the First Strike Nation is actually the most popular. People are just like tweeting, like, how do I get my hands on that? And someone just joined today and was chatting up with Discord, like, how do I do that? And then asking questions in the nation that thankfully, thanks to the Final Nub, has answered. We're going to jump to perhaps our final topic, which is Magic Online news. I'm just going to read a segment of it, and I'll let the guys take it away. Format focus events. Easily the biggest change, the brand new format focus events take the existing format challenge events and turns them into the first step in Premier Play qualification. With format focus events, you can play your favorite format all the way to the Pro Tour. Even better, no prizes are being removed to make room for these format focus events. The entry options aren't changing either. Instead, all players in a format challenge events will get new format points, FPs, on top of their other prizes, if any. Those FPs can qualify them for the format playoff events, which lead to the format championship and maybe even the Magic Online championship and the Pro Tour. Yes, this means that Magic Online players will get to qualify for the Pro Tour playing Pauper or Vintage or Legacy or Modern. Choose your format, succeed in it, and you can ride it all the way to the top. The path to the Magic Online Championship can be seen in the charts below, and they show, go to Daily MTG or find the article. It's called 2019 Magic Online Championship. What's your first takeaway from this? Final Nub, let's start with you. You're muted, Final Nub.
How about now?
Good, go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's great news. It's, I've been playing for almost 2 years now, and all the news, like most of the news has been like pretty negative / like blah, but this is the first one where I'm like genuinely excited. I think this does a few very good things here. One, it's an addendum to the current schedule, and it doesn't seem like it's taking away from any other events or prizes, so it's great. Two, some formats on Magic Online, like a Pauper, Vintage, and Legacy, it's kind of stale. Like Legacy especially is like pretty stale. The challenges are always full with like the same people. Pauper, I heard, is like, I think they're adding a competitive league as well, which is kind of exciting. And Vintage, it's always the same guys, right? And now that these format experts have an actual reasonable mean to get to the Pro Tour, I think it's going to revitalize the formats, and it might bring some new players as well, which is exciting. And three, we talked about this, and Derek mentioned this, but there's a real problem on Magic Online about managing the number of players in an event. modern challenges are awful values because they always have like 110, 120 people, and they always have the freaking same price structure, which is awful. And Magic Online PTQs always have like 300 plus, mocks have 300 plus. By doing this in a quarterly qualification sort of method, I think it's going to be very healthy for Magic Online, and really just like grinding a format and becoming an expert in a format and getting rewarded doubly. One being the QPs and the normal mocks, and two, getting into this format challenge specific path to the Pro Tour. I think it's just exciting, and yeah, hopefully it'll bring new players into new formats. Like Derek was mentioning, he might diversify his skill set into modern or something like that. For example, I think it's going to be very good for the game.
Yeah, I think I also think this is great. One thing I noticed is that every piece of the Power 9 has basically doubled in price since this was announced. If you go to, I think it's Goldfish, and you look at the biggest winners of the week, I think all of them have gone up. Like the minimum they've gone up is 80%, and some of them have gone up like 150%. So that's like twice as much as they were before. Like before this announcement, you can get Power 9 for I think 35 tickets, and now you can get it for about 70, which is great. That means all the treasure chests would go up. People are planning to play Vintage. That means people will probably also try to play Legacy, and more people will try to play Modern. I think another thing that this shows is that Wizards is really paying attention to the Eternal formats and not just to Draft and Standard, which means that they might also be moving everything over to Arena for Draft and Standard, which is maybe good, maybe bad. It's really hard to say. A lot of other things that have to go on with Arena and Moto before we can really decide. But I think the fact that they're putting more effort into these Eternal formats is also very, very, very nice. Even for me, somebody who plays exclusively Standard.
I'm trying to put the in my mind how the calendar would look like. So they say like once every 3 months, the regular weekly format challenge will be replaced by a format playoff event. Format playoffs require 35 FPs to enter, but no takes or play points. Have enhanced prizes compared to a normal format challenge and send the top 8 to the format championship. And the format championships will have up to 32 players and are 5 rounds of Swiss with a cut to a top 8 playoff. The prizes of the championships are significant. Everyone's walking away with a minimum 8 draft sets of boosters, 200 play points, and a format championship avatar. Win the whole thing, and you're going to the Magic Online Championship and the Pro Tour on top of collecting 5 copies of a standard legal set and 1,000 play points. I'm checking the schedule. The championships will be, I guess the first championships will be in 2020 when there's a Modern, Vintage, Legacy, and Pauper championship on the schedule. So those are the first championship, guys?
I think the rotation starts in January. I don't know exactly when the first one would be, probably a couple months after that. Yeah, from what I understand. I think because
according to the calendar, yeah, it's the first championships are all January 2020.
Yeah.
So Derek, you would get hyped for, I guess, the first time you get hyped for Modern is March 23, the Modern playoff Q1.
That's what I'm reading it as. So the season starts in 2019, and the season has 4 playoffs, and then the top 8 of those from those 4 playoffs will feed into the 2020 championship. That's what I'm reading it as.
Yeah, that's sort of like the way they did it last year. I don't remember exactly how they did it last year, but they had basically mocks events like that, and if you top 8 it, you got fed into the 32, and then if you win the 32, if you top 8 the 32, you get fed into another event, and that event top 8 qualifies you. There's like a series of qualification events. I think it's good. I like it. Other than the prizes, I think the prizes are awful. But that's another thing.
I'd have to. I'm curious what the whole EV breakdown is, but this looks pretty awesome. And again, is a great way to sort of, I guess, story build. If you end up being like the modern champion or the standard champion or whatever, and then well, there's no standard, right? It's all these funky formats. Well, non-standard rather. Modern, vintage, legacy, pauper is what I'm seeing. I guess they haven't scheduled the other stuff, or no? Or these are the 4.
Right? They have a. It's not called like the standard championship, but they have the limited and standard feed into another one based on the flow graph that I read.
Okay.
I
gotcha.
like pictures. Yeah, the pictures are really helpful.
It's kind of cool to be the modern format champion. Me and Andy, we're looking at you final digging it down.
You're looking at him.
We're looking at the champ right now, 2020.
The only one sadistic enough to be the modern champion.
To play modern that much. Imagine having people call you the modern champion.
You gotta buy a belt.
And in this corner, the modern champion.
I think they should send him a belt. They should send him a belt, just like they send you, like YouTube sends you something for having X amount of subscribers, right? Just send Final Noah it's like a wrestling belt.
Yeah, more things we need Wizards to invest in that we don't actually need.
Hey,
thanks, Wizards.
T-shirts are gone.
Oh yeah, gotta cut the cost somewhere. We're never getting a belt.
It's kind of gotta reinvest those shirts and those tokens. Shout outs to I don't have the Twitter name in front of me. It's Ink something, right? It's not Ink Playmat.
Is it Inkland Customs?
Inkland Customs.
Yeah, they shouted out to all the Platinum Pros to get in touch with them that they would do 100 free tokens, player tokens for them, and I think it's a cool thing. I think I normally don't go all gaga crazy over some of the celebrity players, but a lot of players do. They get excited. They really want people to sign them. I mean, Ely, I think is not the Ely Cassis was on our show. I don't think is that known because he won an SCG Invitational, but not that known for his Pro Tour success. But because of how good SCG has marketed that series, he's got people coming up to him excited to get him to sign their token. So these are clearly things that fans are excited about. So it's kind of cool to see someone else step up and fill that demand. But even though the WotC decided to cut that and the free shirts for first-time PT goers. Is there anything else that we wanted to cover? Anything? Final note. Actually, I want to cover the first guest on my show, on my new show, is a Merfolk player and ended up winning. I know that in general there's a lot of, hey, why the heck are you playing Merfolk? Like when I sleeved up Win Nikachu, one of the more known players, he's based in Canada. He's done well, top 8, if not won a face-to-face games open. He came in second at a GP. He puts out a ton of YouTube content on the deck. I even tried so much so that I tried his tropical Merfolk when like the new green standard Merfolks were coming in. He was integrating them into the deck. I played it at my first like modern event in a while. It felt really underpowered, not gonna lie. And so I understand the hate. I understand the hate. It does feel underpowered, but sometimes it gets there. And when I interviewed the guy, the winner, Mike Irving, he said like he managed that Dredge is a terrible matchup in his opinion. And he was lucky to dodge every time there was a Dredge guy at the top of the table. He was sitting next to him and not against him, so he avoided that matchup. And he had mentioned that, like you mentioned, John, that people are putting in the hate. Like Nikachu apparently, according to Mike, has 4 surgical extractions in the sideboard because of that, and Mike has at least 2 or 3, and that they are there for the hate. But hey, I don't know if that's enough. But
I gotta say though, they also have 4 missed callers now, which is surprisingly good in this format. Vengevines, Bloodghast, Flaming Phoenix, Gristlebrand. Yeah, I mean, it's very hateful, I'll give you that. But you know what? I'm not going to play against Merfolk for the next 2 years, so I don't care.
Harsh but fair. Harsh but fair.
There is actually, I think, sometimes I think Reddit is a cesspool, like a pool of hate and nothing else. But there is definitely segments of the community that are impressive. Like when he posted, when a lot of you guys, including Derek, post, let's say a Cyborg guy or even a tournament report, this Merfolk guy posted it, you got a lot of love, and I really love seeing that. There's actually, I think, a fish subreddit, and that gets a lot of activity. People are actually tweaking the deck, like debating. I mean, you're shaking your head, but they're debating like the value of peak and not peak, and like deprive versus number of negates. And
Maniacs.
Imagine being so humble with your play skill that you call it the fish Reddit. Like they know that they just make the bad deck choice every week. That we're the fish. It's okay.
That's terrible.
We're the fish of MTG.
There are it's a positive, vibrant community based on the tweets I've seen. But you know, there's been some fire. There's always these like fired up debates, like you're absolutely wrong. Peak is absolute garbage in the deck and stuff like that. But it's cool to see the activity in different parts of Reddit. I don't think, and I think it's unique to the Merfolk community. I don't think like you see like a bunch of Tron players be all chummy. So it's just relegated to some of these archetypes. Finally, you wanted to comment?
Well, what's there to be chummy about? All they need to know is 127. That's how they do math. They don't need to do anything else.
This is terrible. First, last week, we're getting crap.
I think I've decided I like Modern now. You just get to chirp other Modern players for the bad decks they play. That's my favorite part about Magic. Like, how do these Jeskai players cast their spells? How do Tron players count? Why have the fish players called themselves fish? It doesn't make sense.
We get, Andy and I feel the heat. We get criticism when Derek becomes too hateful, and now like Final Nub decides to like crap.
Wait. I got it. Swamp. Exile Simian Spirit Guide, Faithless Looting, discard Griselbrand, Exile Simian Spirit Guide, Goryo's Vengeance, kill you. Top 8 GP.
Hey, I've done it before. I've done it like 5 times. People have salted out at me and say this is the worst experience I've ever had playing Magic. I'm like, hey, thanks, dude. Nice playing with you too.
Oh man. Oh, maybe I'll learn to play like Storm or Amulet Titan or like Mono Red Prison. Oh, this will be fun.
It's funny when you brought up that Merfolk won this. The first thing that came to mind was like Merfolk won a GP. Mono Red Prison won a GP.
Red won a GP.
It's Modern.
Whee! Anything's possible. And you get a GP win. And you get a GP win. You have a subreddit named after you. You get a GP win.
God.
What an awful format. Oh my gosh. How do you enjoy playing this?
I do think turn 1 rightfully does induce rage in people, and I'm trying to imagine the scenario where Final Nub actually says, "Thanks, dude. Nice playing with you too." Like, what?
Please sign the slip. I have to go.
I got things to do.
It's feeding time.
I gotta tell Reddit.
Gotta pay $20 for a hot dog in this convention center.
Man, this is going off the rails. Let's end the show with Ginger. What are you up to with your Twitch stream? I see you're like trying to come up with your own emoticons or something. What's up with that?
Yeah, this weekend, actually yesterday, I got partnered. I passed the partnered threshold, so I get emoticons based on the amount of subs I have, and I got an obscene amount of subs from basically selling my guide. So I have 11 emotes that I just don't know what to do with myself with, and I have badge emotes, and I can do all these crazy things now, and they've given me all this power, and I don't know what to do. So I'm trying to like crowd fund ideas on how to brand myself, and you know, I don't exactly know what I'm doing, but I'm learning. So eventually I'll get there, you know. Maybe I'll start streaming Arena for all you Arena fans out there. Start to sell out and catch me at the next whatever Twitch personalities do. Like maybe I'll be at TwitchCon.
So I still think we've talked about this like outside of the show. What's underutilized is like a good effing, I have to say that word, effing vlog. A good one. I think talked a lot about how I feel like people have begin to solve it in the poker world. How to come up with like it's weird because vlogs are fundamentally usually like low quality stuff because you're just like filming yourself usually. And it's funny that like it's seen a resurgence because people are now like adding all this editing pizzazz on top of it, and it looks awesome. And I think a lot of people that are putting out vlogs now, it's just too long. It's like their entire GP. Like no one's gonna watch that. So I'm excited. I hope you're filming some stuff for GP Milwaukee.
Yeah, we're gonna do a vlog for GP Milky Way, and I might put it in with the Montreal vlog because I don't have a lot for the Montreal vlog, and I can just put them together and yeah.
Or like for me, make two versions. Make the long, like I don't know, misplaced version that's like an hour long or whatever. I'd like to see like I think something that's like condensed down to 10 minutes. I don't know, 10 minutes might be really popular, and people are not going to be like, oh crap, I'm gonna watch this guy's entire day. That's not what people want. But excited for more misplaced content for sure. And Final Nub going to Vegas. Andy, what's up for you for the next week or so?
I think I just waiting to play some RPTQs. There's not a lot going on until then, I don't think.
What's the RPTQ format?
Muted.
Oh, the next one is modern.
Oh, that's really
After that,
unfortunate.
it's standard.
Very happy I'm not queued for the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure you're happy about it.
You're gonna get your dredge on, right?
It's dredge or humans. I'm sure I'll be a coward and play humans, but I'll probably borrow dredge off somebody and then make them waste all the time getting the cards for me and play humans.
Final Nub, I hope you end up playing at least one Merfolk opponent in Vegas. Anyone?
Yeah, so does he.
So does he. Anyone interested in playing, who is playing Modern and really want any comprehensive dredge guy, sign up to the Nation at patreon.com/firststrike to get Final Nub's not only his guide, but he'll answer questions in the Nation, so that's sweet as well. Top of that, you get Andy's Is It Tricks guide, you get Misplaced Gingers, Green Black guide, get all the good stuff. You get early releases of my upcoming show, boom, and that's it. That's all. If you like the show, and we've given a lot of what you should play in Standard, what you should play in Modern, our overall excitement for the MTGO news, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and that's it. Retweet when I tweet this out. Love you guys, and we will see you next week when Derek and Final Nubs are champs. So one of them, hopefully at least one, like 50% chance, right, guys?
That's how math works.
Yeah, it either happens or it doesn't. We win or we lose. It's 50%. Yeah.
And we get two falls too. We got those. It's higher. It's probably higher than 50%. We got two chances.
It's 100%. It's 50% twice.
So we'll see you next time on First Strike. Thanks, guys. Much love.